In this video, you will learn how to implement distributed tracing for your Spring Boot application with the help of Lumigo. We'll be using OpenTelemetry as the library to collect traces from your Spring Boot application, and we will be sending this over to the Lumigo observability and monitoring platform. So for those of you who are new to Lumigo, Lumigo is a company that specializes in cloud-native application observability and troubleshooting. It offers a platform that provides real-time insights into serverless and microservices architectures, helping developers identify and resolve issues efficiently. Lumigo's troubleshooting and observability platform autonomously deploys OpenTelemetry in under 5 minutes with a single click, automatically capturing and contextualizing all of the data developers need to troubleshoot microservices issues in production. So Lumigo is the only distributed tracing platform that enriches traces with complete in-context request and response payloads and correlates them to the relevant logs and metrics, enabling developers to resolve issues up to 80% faster. So in this tutorial, you will learn how to use Lumigo to implement distributed tracing, and you can see how simple it is to implement observability for your Spring Boot applications. So without any further delay, let's start the video. So in this tutorial, we will be mainly using this expense tracker application, which is a Spring Boot REST API that will use OpenTelemetry to send the distributed traces information to Lumigo. So to get started, you have to first download this sample application from this Git repository. You will find the link to this Git repository in the description section of this video. So go ahead and clone this particular repository. After checking out this project, let's head over to the Lumigo website. You can go to the website lumigo.io, and here you are greeted with the landing page of the Lumigo website. So to log in, I'm going to click on the login link here, and this will take you to the login page of Lumigo. Here, either you can sign up for a new account or you can log in to your account using your Google credentials. So I have logged in to the platform using my Google account, and here you can see a message that you can troubleshoot in minutes with distributed tracing. Lumigo provides us different options to implement distributed tracing. So if you are using AWS Lambda based application, Lumigo has this out-of-the-box integration with AWS Lambda, and it also has integration with AWS ECS, Elastic Container Service based application. And if you are using Kubernetes and also containerized applications, you can also use this option of Kubernetes here. As we'll be using Spring Boot applications that are containerized using Docker, I'm going to choose the option Kubernetes. And once this is done, you have again two different options to trace your Kubernetes cluster. So one option is to trace using a Helm operator, and the other one is manual tracing within your source code. As we are developers, we will choose the option of manual tracing and see how we can implement distributed tracing and how easy it is to implement distributed tracing for our applications, Spring Boot applications. So I'm going to click on the option manual trace, and of course we are mainly interested in the Java programming language, but if at all you are interested in other programming languages, you can see that Lumigo provides various options for different programming languages like Python, JavaScript-based Node.js applications, Ruby, .NET, Go, and lastly, we also have Java. So I'm going to select the option Java, and here to enable distributed tracing, we have two options here, two steps. So the first one is to add the environment variables, and the second one is to download the Lumigo OpenTelemetry Java agent. So what we are going to do is we are going to create a Docker image out of our expense tracker REST API application, and we are going to include this OpenTelemetry Lumigo OpenTelemetry Java agent as part of the Docker image, and we are going to run the container, and then Lumigo is going to do its magic and provide us the observability information of what's going on inside our Spring Boot application. So we will of course see this in practice, but these are the steps we follow to implement observability in your Spring Boot applications. So go ahead and click on this particular link where you can download OpenTelemetry Java agent from Lumigo. So if I click on this, it will take us to the GitHub page of the OpenTelemetry Java distro. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make sure that I'm selecting the latest version 0.13.0. This is the latest version at the time of creating the video. So if you're watching this video sometime in the future, there may be a newest version. Just make sure to select the latest one and click on this link where you can download the jar file. So once this is done, let's open this expense tracker application in our IDE. All right, so I opened the expense tracker REST API application in my favorite IDE. I'm using IntelliJ IDEA as my IDE. So once this is done, I'm going to let's have a quick look at what we are using inside this project. So if I open the pom.xml, I'm using the latest version of Spring Boot at the time of recording this video. It is 3.3.2. I'm using the Java version 21, which is the latest LTS version, and I'm using the Spring Data JPA library along with the H2 database, H2 in-memory database. So to get started, the first thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to copy the jar file, which I've downloaded from the Lumigo portal, into the root directory of the expense tracker REST API project, right? So you can see that I've added the jar file onto the root project. So once this is done, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to build this application. So I'm going to build this application and create the jar file create the jar file of the expense tracker REST API application. So for that, I'm going to run the Maven build. Either you can open the terminal and run the Maven clean package command like this, Maven clean package, or if you are using IntelliJ IDEA like me, so you can click on the Maven icon here to the right side corner and click on the goal, and I'm going to select the option Maven clean package. So this will start the build of our application, and it will start building the jar file of our expense tracker REST API application. So once this is done, we can start packaging our application into a Docker image. So for that, I'm going to create a file called as Docker. I'm going to create a Docker file on the root of our application. So I'm going to right click on new file. I'm going to name this file as Docker file. And the first thing I'm going to do is to select a base image. So I'm going to type from OpenJDK 21. So I'm going to use the OpenJDK 21 Slim as the base image. And after that, I'm going to define a work directory as /app. Then I'm going to copy the jar file. So you can, if you expand the target folder, you can see that we have this expense tracker REST API.jar file. So what I'm going to do now is simply copy the target *.jar into /app, and I'm going to call it expense tracker.jar. So I'm going to copy this particular jar file into the folder /app expense tracker.jar inside the Docker container. And I'm going to also copy the Lumigo OpenTelemetry jar file into the Docker image. So I'm going to copy Lumigo OpenTelemetry 0.13.0.jar to the path /app Lumigo OpenTelemetry 0.13.0.jar. So, and after that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to expose the port 8080, and finally I'm also going to run the command java -jar expense tracker.jar. So we created a Docker file where we are going to copy the jar file of our expense tracker API, and also we are going to copy the Lumigo OpenTelemetry agent jar file. And we also need to do one more thing, that is to add some environment variables that will enable the distributed tracing for this Lumigo OpenTelemetry agent. So for that, we need to go back to the Lumigo portal. So here you can see that in the second step, after downloading the OpenTelemetry Java agent, we have to set the Java_tool options environment variable on our JVM. So for that, I'm just going to copy this particular part and go back to my IDE, and just before the expose part, I'm going to type in env, and I'm going to paste in the text I've copied from the Lumigo portal, and here I am going to provide the path to the Lumigo Hotel Java agent. So I'm just going to replace this with the path, which is going to be this particular path. So this will be /app Lumigo OpenTelemetry 0.13.0.jar. So once this is done, we have all the information we need to create this Docker image. So I'm going to open the terminal, and I'm going to build this Docker image by typing docker build -t expense tracker, and I'm going to provide the present directory as the context, the Docker, and you can see that the Docker file, the Docker image is built successfully, And I'm going to run the container using this Docker image we have just created using this docker run command. So you can see that in the bottom part of the video, we have this docker run command with my option -d, and I'm also going to expose the port 8080 and map it to the 8080 port of my host machine, and I'm going to name the container as expense tracker. And apart from that, I'm also going to provide two environment variables to the Docker container. The first one is going to be the Lumigo tracer token. So this is the token which provides authentication that enables the agent to send the traces to the Lumigo server. And the next thing in the next environment variable is going to be the hotel service name. So this is going to be the OpenTelemetry service name. It's like uniquely identifiable service name for your application. And after that, we have the actual Docker image which we want to create a container out of. This is the expense tracker. So go ahead and run this particular container, and you can see that this is going to of course fail because I have not provided my actual token here. So I ran the docker run command, and you can see that the container is now running successfully. As you can see here, we have this, we have added this Lumigo tracer token, hotel service name, and also we have added the necessary information. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click on the continue button. And now Lumigo is ready to listen to the traces from your application. And now what I did is I went to the localhost 8080 Swagger UI index.html page, and this is going to open us the REST API documentation of this expense tracker API. So what we are going to do is we are going to create some expenses, play around with this REST API, try to provide some traces so that we can see how Lumigo is handling that. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an expense. So for that, I'm going to first expand this post section here, and here I'm going to click on the option try it out. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create an expense. So for that, I don't need this ID field, and I'm going to name this expense as movie night, and I'm going to provide the expense amount as 50, and I'm going to click on execute. So this is going to send a post request to the server, which is running inside the Docker container. And if you can just scroll down, you can see that we got a 201 response. That is an expense is created successfully. So now let's try to query this expense. So I'm going to collapse this part, and I'm going to expand the get all expenses section. Again, I'm going to click on try it out, and I'm going to just execute this, and we should get the information about the expense. So you can see that we have an ID 1, and we have the information about the expense we have created. That's good. So let's click on cancel here, and let's click on the option to collapse this get all expenses section. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand this particular update an expense. So if we are going to update the expense we just created, I'm going to click on the try it out button, and I'm going to provide the ID as 1, and I'm going to remove this particular expense name, so that I just want to simulate a scenario where the application will throw an error. So, and I'm going to set the expense amount as 100, right? Let's click on execute button. So this will send a put request to the REST API. And if I just scroll down, you can see that we got a 400 error. That's a bad request error because of course we have removed the expense name. So let's add this back. Expense name is going to be concert. I'm going to simulate another error. I'm going to remove the ID, and I'm going to update the expense. So I'm going to click on execute, and this time it's sending a 400 error again. So that's good. I'm going to click on cancel and collapse this particular update expense. And here now, lastly, I'm going to delete this particular expense we created. I'm going to click on try it out, provide the ID of the expense. So that's is 1. So I'm going to provide the value 1 here and click on execute. So now you can see that we got the 204 response. That means the expense is deleted successfully. So we have made many operations on our REST API. So I think Lumigo should have enough information to provide the details about observability information about our application. So let's head back to Lumigo portal, and here now you are in the Lumigo dashboard, where you can see the overview about your containerized application. So first of all, you can see the number of requests that are made to our container. So there are total 16 requests, and you can see the timeline in which the requests are triggered. So we have 1 request, and then we have other 7 requests, and we have 3 requests where 2 of them are failed. So we also can see the information about the failed requests. So we have again other 2 requests that are failed, and 12.5% of the requests failed. So if I just scroll down, you can also see the latency of our services, how many calls are made, for example, to the database. So there are 13 calls made with the P95 and P99 metrics, and we also have the information about most failed services. Of course, as we have only one service now, it's going to be expense tracker. To view more information, I can go to the Explore tab here, and I can see a lot of information where I can get a lot of insights about my application. So here you can see we have first of all the requests that are made to our application. So there are 33 requests, and you can see each and every request that is made to our application. So first let's go down all the way down to the start. So here you can see that the request that is made from our application to the database. So we have the select request, and then we have the request from the application to delete the expense, and then we have other expenses information, and we have all the information which is listed here. And if you just scroll up, you can also see that we are able to see the information about 400 errors we got. So these are the put requests that failed. So if I click on details, you can see that we have detailed information about this particular operation. You can see the customer ID, the execution ID, and if you just expand this, you can also see the information about the error, right? So you can exactly see what is the message coming from the backend, what is the error type. So in this case, it's going to be 400 client error. And if you scroll down, you can also see information about the request method and the status code. Finally, you can also see much more information about this particular operation by clicking on C invocation. And now we are going to go to the invocation tab, where Lumigo is going to give us much more information about this particular operation. So these are the environment variables you see that are part of the application. And if you just scroll down here, we see the tracing information here. So we have the trace ID of this particular operation, the span ID, and we have some other important attributes like what about the HTTP headers, and we also have the information about the threads, the information about the status code, and also the host information, and etc. So this is one request. So let's go back to the Explore tab, and now let's select another request. For example, the first one where we have making a call to the database, get call to the database. And if I click on details and click on C invocation, so now you can see that we have a visual representation of the communication between our expense tracker API application and the H2 database. So you can see that the expense tracker application is talking to the database, of course, and you can see here more information about what is really happening here. So if I click on this particular information here, and you can see the request that is made by our application to the database. You can see the database query which was executed, and you can get more information about the timestamp. We also have the information about the database, like what is the name of the database, what is the statement that was executed, and also some other metadata that may be helpful for us. So if you click on the transactions button, you can also see the requests which are coming into our application. So these are categorized as transactions, and if you click on this transaction, you will be taken again to the transaction tab, where you can get information again about a particular operation. So let's click on Explore here, and In the Explore tab, we can also filter by different resources. So if you want to see a get operation, so you can click on this particular operation and you can see all the statements, select statements that were executed. And so if you click on delete, you can also see all the deletes that were done. You can also, if you have any issues, you can also of course select this option to filter out by the issue type. And here we have the 400 errors that were that we simulated. And like this, we can also filter out with different information, like if you want to see the requests that are taking more time than expected. So for example, if a request is taking more than 4 seconds, we can filter for that information here. And we can also filter for the HTTP status codes, and we can also filter by HTTP methods. So this time I tried to simulate simulate some other errors in our application. So you can see that in the latest request, we are now getting an illegal argument exception. So this exception occurred 3 times. And if I click on this particular details icon here and click on see invocation, you can see that you not only see the information about the environment variables and the span ID and the trace ID, we can also see the stack trace of this particular issue, right? So this is very helpful in debugging your applications. So most of the time what will happen is you try to find an issue, you try to find a trace inside your tracing platform, and then you try to go and you try to search for this particular trace inside your logging platform, and this can be time taking when you are to debug an important production issue, right? So having this kind of holistic view to query your logs and your traces in your troubleshooting production issues. This is one really good thing. And we have another option in Lumigo to see the issues which are occurring in real time. So I'm going to click on this live tail icon. And here you can see that Lumigo is listening to all the invocations for our application. So if I try to invoke some requests, so I'm going to again require and invoke this bad request one more time. And here I'm going to get a 500 error. So this time I'm going to add the ID field. It's going to be 1. And I'm going to click on execute. And this time I'm going to click on get expenses. And here you can see that we don't have any expense right now. And let's go back to our Lumigo portal and see if the issues are coming or not, and if you are able to see the invocations or not. So here you can see that we already see this illegal argument exception, and the call to the get API is also visible now. So if you want to just look at the issues of your application, you can go to the issues tab, and here you have just the information about what are the issues which you faced. So this is going to be, so we have the illegal argument exception and the 400 client error response. So you can see that how many times each error occurred. So this illegal argument exception occurred 4 times. So if I click on this particular information here, you can see really nice view about the request flow map, the number of requests and the failed requests with this particular error, and the request failures. If you want to just concentrate on where the request has failed, at which point of time the request has failed. You can see the details of the last transaction, like this particular relevant stack trace. And we can see some other issues which occurred in this particular expense tracker service. So that would be the 400 client error response issues, right? So if you want, you can also assign this issue to a particular person. So you can click on assign, and then you can assign to a particular person in your team. And you can also create a Jira ticket. So once you have so Lumigo provides integration to many services, so Jira is one of them. So if you enable the Jira integration, you can create a Jira ticket and assign to that person automatically. And of course, you can also use muted notifications. So if you know that someone is working already on an issue, maybe you want to mute this notification for 1 hour or 4 hours, and you can also do that. So there are a lot more features available in Lumigo. It's very hard for me to cover everything in one video. So I suggest you to go to the Lumigo portal. You can find the link in the description section and try to explore the platform if you want to know more details about it. And that's it for this video, and I will see you in the next video. Until then, happy coding techies.